Imagine living in a beautiful community, amazing facilities, clean roads, fully secured, and the operations are smooth. Have you ever wondered who is managing these communities behind the scene? And more importantly, while this profession manages millions of real estate, it's barely spoken. Today, we're going to uncover that. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Recruiter Talks. As you know, my name is Siva Krishna. I'm into talent acquisition. I'm in the region for the last 13 years, always in talent acquisition. I worked in various industries: oil and gas, facilities management, property management, real estate, and currently with a healthcare firm. As you know, I do a lot of podcasts. One of the main reason I do this podcast to bring in the real insights, real professionals, to share their real journeys. This information can help you shape your career or to make your career decisions. And I'm sure you have subscribed. If you have not subscribed, please click on the subscribe button now, as this will motivate me to bring in a lot of content. So basically, this profession is mainly responsible to manage your communities or properties on behalf of the developers or the owners. It is community management or owners association management. We have someone in the studio who's been thick of it, Mr. Freejo Francis. Just to give you a very brief intro about Mr. Freejo is currently a Chief Executive Officer here at One Community Management, as well as he's a founder and advisory for Elevate Realty. Mr. Freejo comes with 20 years of experience. He's worked in the community management for almost 14 years in the region. He's worked with top-notch real estate firms in the region, and his name is very well known in the community management fraternity. Welcome to the show, Mr. Freejo.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Shiva.
you so much.
Thank you so much
for coming in.
Thank you, Shiva. It's a pleasure being here.
Great. I'm sure audience would like to know more about who Mr. Freejo is. Just give us a very high-level intro about yourself.
My journey is probably not what you would want to hear when you hear community management. My background goes with a start of hospitality. I'm a graduate from hospitality industry. Way back from 2001. I've done my degree in hospitality from New Zealand. And from there, I have done two pre-openings for Marriott International way back in India.
Wow.
I started my career that way. And God has been kind. The journey has been good. From there, I moved on to work on cruise liners. So, namely P&O Cruise Liners, Carnival UK, and Royal Caribbean Miami. I sailed for probably 9 years across continents, different multinational colleagues to work with, and then did a bit of facility management back in India, and I landed up in UAE with the community management world. That's how my journey started with community management. And as an assistant community manager, from there I grew up the ranks to be association manager, then head of owners association, director, and currently as the chief executive officer, CEO for One Community Management, which has been founded under Mohammed bin Rashid Foundation, SME. And I also have founded another company called Elevate Reality Real Estate Brokerage Firm, where I am the advisory and founder. Again, going back to what I said was, and this is all linked to each other, and it just makes me do what I want to. And I'm learning each day as it goes, even at this stage of my career, which makes me feel that I'm at the right place and I'm doing the right thing.
Amazing journey. From where you started to where you are. Sounds very inspiring to me.
Thank you.
I'm sure most of them who are in the fraternity would dream of going to that level of having that position as a chief executive officer. Again, I'm sure you might have put in a lot of hard work into it. Whenever we meet at times, when we say hey, I'm from community management, people would you'll be surprised to see you might have a question back saying what is community management? So for those who is not aware or who have not heard of community management, in the past. How would you explain in a very simplest terms?
Very simple. Let's say you stay in a beautiful project in Dubai.
Right.
Everything in and around you is working perfectly fine. When you get up in the morning, you get into your elevators, the elevators is clean, it's working absolutely fine. You get into the swimming pool, the pool is good, it's well
Right.
maintained, you have your lifeguard guarding you there. You get into your garden, your landscaping is nice, everything is working perfectly fine, which means the community management team in that project is doing the job right.
Right.
When the project, when any of these things which is not working fine, that's when you start looking for a community manager or a community management team who's responsible for it. So your success of being into community management is making things work perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And that's how it runs.
Absolutely. You touched on very important points. Again, for audience who are actually watching this episode, again, we are not talking about small communities. There are massive communities. I'm like, there are master communities. Again, it's very difficult to explain the operations and number of properties in that community. I know it's a lot of work there. Thanks. So, how is community management career in UAE or for that matter in GCC?
I think this is one of the professions which is going to be in demand, not just currently, which is going to be more in demand coming in future.
Right.
If I have to say the 2040 vision of UAE or Dubai itself, then you have a 2030 vision from Saudi, then Qatar is growing. All these different continents need professional people coming in.
Right.
And the more you spend time, the more you learn, the more you make yourself thorough in your profession, the more opportunities will come. As you are aware that this strata community management is also called strata management. As I said, the strata management comes from originally from US, and it is very widely accepted across Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK for that matter. And you have an horizon to grow if you are somebody who have done this profession in and out, who's learned the basics, because it's going to be the same kind of role in all these continents.
Right.
However, there might be differences in law depending on which state, which country you're going into. But yes, there is a big horizon for you to go, and there's going to be a huge demand moving ahead. It's not just now. I think the future is very bright.
Yeah. Especially Dubai, like real estate speaks very high in Dubai, and obviously with the increase in the properties, you need someone to manage your communities, and there are always good opportunities coming into the market.
Correct.
Great. Thanks.
But to all those who are aspiring to be making their careers in community management, this is of a very big responsibility, because you're handling public funds.
Right.
You've got to be transparent. You have a very, very strict regulator, which is on the toes to make sure that the funds are being utilized and spent in the right way. But having said all this, if you have taken this seriously, I believe you will end up being a very, very strong professional. And I would say it will also help you to be a very good professional or a person in your personal life as well.
Right.
Because you're handling millions of dirhams of budgets,
Right.
different aspects of services. So it just gives you an eye-opener to the attention of detail, what you're managing on a day-to-day basis. So it could be that you come in to have a normal day, and then it starts with somebody calling you to complain about a leak or something which is not operational. You run for that. You have next day you could be just doing some site surveys. You're walking around a project, looking into every attention to detail from an owner, from a resident point of view. So it's a very, very different role.
We'll move on to the next question. So again, this is a bit, I wouldn't say controversial. What is the reason that community management profession is not known to everyone? Have you ever thought of this? You being in the community management, you think everyone is familiar with community management. What are your thoughts on this?
Good question, Shiva. I think, honestly, community management, I would represent the community management fraternity by saying that, it's not widely acclaimed or been celebrated.
Right.
And I feel, as I just mentioned to you some time back, was that if everything is working fine, the community management company or the professional is doing a good job. That means you're always behind the curtain.
Right.
So you're not celebrated.
Okay.
So I feel this profession should be celebrated because this profession is not easy. Number one, it comes with a huge sense of responsibility
Right.
because community management is just not about serving customers, looking at the clients or residents or homeowners. You need to learn everything. You need to be knowing a bit of facility management. You need to know a little bit of law. You
Yeah.
need to understand finance. Need not be a CFO or a chartered accountant, but you
Right.
still need to understand how the budgets are made, how the reserve funds are prepared, and what are your preparations for forecasting a budget. So you need to be a jack of all trades. You need to be comfortable doing all these things. And this is where the community management profession is, I would say, a different ball game.
Right.
And people who stay here love to stay here because it becomes your passion, because it just gives you a 360 angle of everything. So person moving out of community management also have an horizon to go back to pursue their career in facility management. They can do asset management, they can do property management, they can do real estate,
Right.
because that's what you've been doing in community management around the clock.
Absolutely. No, you touched on various good points. So again, what I was trying to figure out was, when we say we are into property management, everyone is aware of property management, and when we say facilities management, yeah, people are aware. But somewhere I felt like the community management is somewhere hiding behind. So it's not very widely spoken in the market. So that's the reason. But thanks that was a deeper insight on why it was
I
hidden.
think I think I think with this podcast, I would put that out loud, that it has to be more spoken about and more credits to be given to the professionals.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's one of the reason we have chosen this profession. I'm like, when we look back and see like what are the opportunities available for any fresh graduate, for that matter, or someone who came here, or for job search, and he wants to get into a profession, and if he couldn't if he was not successful finding a role in what he studied, are there any options available for me on the table? I think community management should be aware to those, who are searching for a job.
Shiva, going back to this question, I think you will. It's a very good question, because there are a lot of people who are trying to figure out how this community management field works.
Right.
I would say, very hypothetically, this is how our industry works. You come in, you start working as a community coordinator, a supervisor.
Right.
Then you grow up to be an assistant community manager. Then you go up the rank to be a community manager, senior community manager, portfolio manager,
Right.
head of owners association, which means you're handling all of the below positions, and then move on to be a director, and then probably reach the peak of being a GM or a CEO for a company,
Yeah.
taking the vision ahead. But all these things come with a period of years of experience. That is what I said in the start, that somebody who comes into this industry needs to keep that in mind, that it's not an easy thing.
Right.
Neither I'm saying it is difficult, but you need to have the patience to go through this, because there's a myth in the market where people say that community management is very easy,
Right.
only because you just prepare a budget and you collect money and you pay your service providers. That's not the case.
Right.
So you, over the period of time, over the period of experiences at different companies, different positions, you get to learn a lot. You get to
Right.
see, and this, as a professional, as an industry, the person who has clocked a lot of time in this industry is somebody who needs to be considered for any higher roles, because they have been here and gone through that different various things. As I said, no day is the same.
Right.
So somebody who's coming with many years of experience has done this on a day-to-day basis for so many years,
Right.
and different scenarios. So, that makes the profession very, very challenging and interesting.
Thanks for that insights. You took your first role as an assistant community manager. How was it like?
Wow. Going back to memories, I would
Right.
say it was not as well as it was expected,
Okay.
because since I was coming from a hospitality background, I had clocked my time with experience working around, and I always felt that it's going to be simple. It's going to be learning though, but it's going to be very easy. But going back in my old days when I started my career, my first year was an eye opener for me, because working on the community budgets,
Right.
understanding what a reserve fund or a sinking fund is, estimating your forecasting for your next year budgets is more than what it is just doing a job. It's not a desk job. It is a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. You cannot go wrong,
Right.
because you're just not going wrong for yourself, but you're going wrong for the entire community. A lot of people living there. And finance is the backbone for community management, because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
entire ecosystem goes wrong if you
Right.
start predicting it wrong. So the eye opener for me, as you said, asked Shiva, is that the first those days we used to have an annual general body meeting once a year, where the entire residents of a project is being invited to come, and there you have to present the budgets,
Right.
what's been done, and things like that has to be showcased.
Yeah.
And then what hit me at that point of time is you have a bunch of owners, would say 40 to 50 people sitting looking at you when you're presenting,
Right.
and you got to be dead sure of what you speak. You got to have your facts right, because they're not there to listen to what you are thinking of doing, but basically they're trying to look at you and say, okay, what have you done with our money? How is my investment looking like?
Okay.
And how safe and how much more would my investment grow? In terms of community management,
Right.
will my investment look bigger, nicer? Will I get if the person is not an end user, he's looking at you to say, will I get a better rent next year?
Right.
So you've got to be right with the numbers, figures, everything. So that is something which was an eye opener for me, that you cannot take this lightly.
So, was there a moment you thought, okay, this is not where I belong?
At many moments, sure, yes, it does come across your brains. Am I doing the right job, doing the right thing in here? But somebody who loves this would enjoy this a lot.
So, now I'll move on to education and certification part of it. Would you mind just giving us some insights on what sort of certifications are available in the market for someone who wants to get into community management?
Once again, thank you, Shiva. It's a very good question. And I would like to put that clarity. In community management, I think you could be of any background, any industry. I would say the stepping stone for them would be doing a course called M100. This course actually gives them an insight of what community management is and what is expected out of a community management professional. You also have simultaneously another course called ARM, which also is covering the same aspects, but also covers a little bit of real estate, property management. So there are 2 or 3 different kind of courses as an initial start for somebody who wants to understand what the community management is, and that's the stepping stone.
Okay. And how long does it take for anyone to complete this?
M100 course is a 3-day course. ARM course also is a 3-day course, and it is available in person. And I would really strongly advise everybody who starts and who's doing an M100 to do it in person in a classroom,
Right.
because it is your first insight about what community management is,
Right.
and 2 is that you're sitting with a bunch of colleagues
Right.
who is doing the same courses. Tomorrow it could be your co-colleague. Tomorrow it could be your boss. Tomorrow it could be your mentor. The network, what you built there on the first day, is something which you carry with you for the entire journey of community management. So the lessons or the talks what you have during the coffee breaks on a M100, I still remember when I did way back, with who I
Right.
spoke, what I spoke, because you're so fresh.
Right.
You want to talk, you want to understand, what other companies are doing, what other projects are doing, and it's an amazing experience. And that's why I always strongly recommend somebody to go and do that in person
Right.
because it's an experience.
Right. And who's the certificate authority, or what's the awarding the certificate? And how much does it cost approximately, just for the audience to know about the cost?
So we have CAI, which is a US-based community management institute from
Uh-huh.
United States,
All right.
which does the M100.
Right.
And they also have multiple other courses like M200 series, which starts from 201
Oh, wow.
all the way till
Okay.
206.
All right.
And that takes you through a journey of governance, communications, legal. There are different aspects of that when you get into the 200 series.
So basically, M100 is a basic,
Is the
and then
basic.
to polish better
Yes.
and better. So you enroll onto M200s, and then
Yes.
you develop your skills.
Exactly. M100, as I said, is a stepping stone. So somebody who
Okay.
enters the community management world, I would say this course, by the end of this course, it's an eye opener to what they're
Right.
getting into. So let me put it by saying it's an early exit if you don't feel you're there.
Okay.
But then as you keep going, you decided to move your career in this path, then I believe the M200 series is just about polishing yourself,
Right.
getting more in-depth knowledge
Okay.
through different aspects. As I said, facility management is something which is reserve fund studies, legal, communications,
Right.
the legalities and how you need to communicate. So does we have another institute called IREM, who
Okay.
does ARM, ECOM, CPM, all these different courses. Now, the difference in these two is IREM comes for the background of a mix of property management professionals and community management professionals.
Okay.
And CAI is purely backgrounded with community management professionals and has been there for long.
These days, a lot of engineering students, the influx of engineering is very high. Do you suggest community management for engineering students?
This is an intersection for any professionals coming from any of the backgrounds. Facility management is another crucial part
Right.
because every project, every community you manage will have assets,
Right.
and but it need not be that you need to be an engineer to be a community manager professional.
Of course.
So yes, it is good.
Okay.
It is a perk because you
Alright.
understand systems, you understand mechanics.
Right.
But having said that, community management is a different aspect altogether because it is communication. And you need to keep your facility management experience at the back.
Okay.
But at the front is always communication.
Thanks so much for the insights. Can you just give an idea on how are the salaries for community management?
Level for any person coming into community management is an officer or an administration role. It starts from around 5,000 to 6,000.
Right.
And then you go up the ranks to be an assistant community manager, then a community manager,
Right.
Association manager. Every company differs.
Right.
When I say every company differs, you have two segments in the industry where you have a developer
Right.
who has their own owners association division,
Right.
and you're managing the projects what they have developed.
You're right.
And then you have a private firm
Okay.
who's serving the same to a developer who doesn't have an owners association. So basically, the salary range differs.
Understand.
But to put a pinpoint for somebody to understand where you want to start from, getting into community management is, I think, you need to look at as an officer, an administrator, or a supervisor, starting
Right.
from 5 to 6 or 7.
Right.
Depend, as I said, it varies from company to company,
Absolutely.
and move on and go up the ladder.
Of course, 100%. I completely agree with you. It differs from companies to companies, and then, as you said, it differs from a private organization to a developer. Of course, I'm sure you're part of interviews, or your team is hiring a lot of staff. So, do you also take freshers for an entry level role? Are they considered usually?
Yes, increasingly so. We
Okay.
do consider people with their own experience because I always feel there is always a start for
Right.
anybody, right?
Absolutely.
However, the thing is that in UAE, especially with Dubai, when you come
Mm-hmm.
into community management, as I kept repeating it to reiterate that the law is very strict
Okay.
and it is governed and looked into very
Oh, okay.
particularly by them.
Okay.
So anybody coming outside UAE to step into the community management world would have to spend little time
Okay.
to understand the law, to understand how this industry works,
Okay.
what are your responsibilities,
Mm-hmm.
and as we touched base on, would be invest some time doing the M100 course,
Right.
understand what this profession is demanding out of you,
Okay.
and then go on and so forth. Yes, it is open for people with
Okay.
some kind of an experience,
Right.
but it depends candidate to candidate and experience to experience.
I understand. My follow-up question would be someone who has home country experience, for example, is that taken into consideration?
Yes, we do. I know a lot of people who have come from different parts, let it be India, let it be Australia. And, I have come across colleagues who have come, who have understood this profession being here.
Okay.
Because, as I said initially as well, that though the word community management is the same,
Okay.
different countries have different laws, it has
Absolutely.
different, insights.
Right.
So it just for you as a person to come in and understand this law, understand how this industry works,
Okay.
and what is expected out of you as a professional, it makes you easier. And then you're welcomed because you speak knowledge and experience.
What is that one skill do most of the candidates lack when they come in for the interview?
Over my period of time with interviews, honestly, it's financial literacy and
Okay.
communication structure. So many candidates, when I sit across in interviews, when I ask them about their day-to-day things,
Right.
about their operations, they are good enough to explain what the
Okay.
operations are. But when I start talking about the financials in terms of budgets, in terms of how service charges are calculated, how they are derived, and what is the forecasting method, that's where I feel there's a lag.
Right.
And you should be having understanding about all these things.
They have to be good with the numbers because there's an aspect to finance because they have to calculate the service charges, so on and so forth.
Community management is 50% operations, 50% communication. There could be a problem which you can fix, but if you cannot explain,
Right.
the owners lose the trust.
Understand.
But if you can explain the problem, but you cannot fix it, that loses your credibility. So that's why I said it's 50% of operation and 50% of communication.
So we touched on most of the important aspects that is required from a candidate perspective. What would you make, or what makes you reject a candidate immediately?
I don't want to be quoted for this, but me personally, three things are very clear: lack of integrity,
Right.
any hint of a person or candidate of not handling relationships and finances unethically is a big no for me, because community management comes with handling public funds, and
Right.
you cannot have somebody on board
Right.
who doesn't find the importance of doing that. Or second thing which alarms me is a blaming attitude. So you have a lot of, I'm sure you have come across a lot of candidates as well who come across saying that they are always right and they had a boss or an operations or a company which was wrong. That again rings an alarming state for me, saying that this could be 2 years or 1 year down the line.
Right.
The person is going to go to another interview and speak about my company and my operations. And one of the major factors which I personally look into is listening skills.
Right.
Somebody with poor listening skills for me is alarming,
Okay.
because hearing is different and listening is different. So during interviews as well, I throw a lot of conversations and questions just to make a point if the person is hearing or listening. Because
Right.
I'm sure you, coming from a human resource background, you have a lot of candidates who come with a premature questions and answers ready in their mind. So at times when
Yeah.
you tweak it a little bit, they still give you the same answer because they're not listening to what you're asking. So I find that very skillful to see if somebody is listening to your questions, because it might be that I'm asking a very difficult question, but I'm just picking up a very small aspect of it. But the person is so prefixed in the nausea that I want to answer this being asked, I'll answer this.
Right.
And they go on saying the same thing. So I understand, okay, he was hearing me, not listening me.
Yeah, you always get different types of candidates like in during the interviews. But then yeah, this is very informative. I believe I'm like, especially those who are attending interviews would be prepared in advance. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So, Mr. Freejo, what advice do you wish someone gave you 10 years ago?
First would be stop trying to please everyone in community management. That is something which, at an early stage of your career, if you would have known that,
Okay.
that's the best thing. You cannot please everyone in community management. And second, networking.
Right.
Invest time in meeting people, invest time in learning,
Right.
because it is going to give you a better ROI.
Definitely. Especially these days.
Yeah.
Networking in community management fraternity is very high. I see a lot of engagement in community management professionals. There are a lot of seminars that are conducted, and often you guys like meet. I see a lot of LinkedIn posts, like all the community managers. The family is so close to each other. So, can you talk about it?
Community management professionals, networking is the heartbeat for progress, for your next job. It could be anything.
Yeah.
And it's a very close knitted industry. So anything which happens, anything is moving around, somebody gets promoted, somebody is moving to another job. It's very fast. The information and the, I would say it's a different podcast internally within us. But yeah, there are different different aspects to it. As I said, we have different forums. Like as I said, spoke about CAI. So CAI has a Middle East chapter. That's what we call as KME. That's where we do our monthly meetings. We have workshops. We work very closely with RERA.
Wow.
Fortunately, I was one of the privileged inaugural board members in 2022. We were elected across GCC to serve on the board, and each tenure was for 3 years. Similarly, you have another chapter for IREM, which is also another fraternity, which, as I said, mentioned before. They have their chapter as well, and they do the same, that they call for monthly, quarterly meetings. It is workshop discussions. And the best thing is, Shiva, the thing is, you keep networking. As I said, when you get into these kind of conferences and meetings, you end up meeting somebody from a different aspect altogether. Maybe it is held in Dubai, but you might meet somebody from Ras Al Khaimah, from Fujairah, from Abu Dhabi, who you have never met, and then you start clicking, you talk.
Absolutely. And again, what I've seen, like, let's say like someone is in need of a job or someone has an opening that they're looking for candidates. I think this is an amazing, and honestly, I should say, we're all busy with our regular work. Again, keeping some time for the community, I'm talking about outside community management, your community, is something I really liked in the community management fraternity. I really appreciate everyone who is actually doing this. And we'll move on to the next segment. It's going to be one-liners round. So if I ask you, what is one harsh truth about community management?
You're managing people's home, savings, finance, their emotions, all at the same time. So there is no on and off button.
Okay. And what is that one skill that guarantees success in community management?
Listening and not hearing.
Okay. And what is that one mistake any fresher must avoid?
Treating this job as a 9 to 5.
Okay.
Because this is not a 9 to 5 job. It is round the clock and it's full of surprises.
Understand. If I ask you, community management is not for people, who is that?
Not for people who come with a prefixed day, that 9 to 5, I come, sit on a desk, do this job and go away.
Okay.
This job is challenging. It stretches you, it demands a lot, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. And if you're a person who somebody loves these challenges, I think it's the place to be.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Freejo, for your time and sharing valuable insight towards community management. These insights are very, very helpful, especially for someone who wants to start a career in community management. I would like to just give you a quick, like 1 minute if you have something to speak to the audience.
Thank you, Shiva, for the recruiter talks, for putting the spotlight on the community management industry and the professionals. Community management is no longer quiet behind the scene profession how it was.
Right.
We are entering into a new era where communities are coming with new products. It is evolving, and the developers are coming with new ideas. So it is a big boost to the industry people coming in. In Dubai, we are surrounded by very strong support structure from RERA, Dubai Land Department, Civil Defense, SERA, which is very unseen for any other country. So this country is blessed to have this ecosystem where all the government authorities come together and work together for the well-being of a project, for the well-being of the people living in here, for the homeowners. If you are a student, a fresher, a mid-career path, having a meaningful path ahead, this industry is open to grow. This industry has a lot of opportunities coming up. And the real question is, how ready are you to step in and take this forward? Thank you again for putting this on the spotlight. And to everyone watching, if I can be of any help in their journey, please feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn. And I think time has come that the community management industry needs to be celebrated, needs to be spoken of, because it is a profession which is very serious, and it is a profession where a lot of hard work is gone into, and gone are those days that we are behind the scene. We need to come out and celebrate this as a profession, as like any other profession.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Mr. Freejo. Thank you so much for that. That's all about community management in this podcast. We'll come back with another podcast with a different profession with more career insights. Again, thank you so much for supporting me by watching my videos. If you have not subscribed yet, please do click on the subscribe and support me. Thank you, and see you soon in the next podcast.